Canada has a monopoly on violence. They maintain a state power where the only people who are viewed to be able to legitimately use power and force are the police, are authorized by the state, and so Indigenous people then encounter physical violence when they try to exert their land stewardship over lands and waters.
We just had that Freedom of Information request from APTN or CBC, one of them, report on the $21 million that was spent policing LandBack Lane from July 19th to July 19th. And, it is disgusting numbers like that just, are mind blowing.
The part that I really like is the fact that of that $21 million, I think it was $6 million was spent on salary and $12 million on overtime salary. Mm-hmm. Basically being paid double time to sit there and build gardens.
There's so much that Indigenous communities and Indigenous nations across the country have gone through. Like residential schools, over incarcerations rates, the child protective system, that, like, you name it, the list just keeps going on and on and on. And so the level of trauma, the level of dispossession, the amount of hate and racism that we've all had to deal with means that there are very few of us in a place where we can say, you know what, we're going to go and put ourselves on the front line. We're willing to risk jail. We're willing to risk those assault rifles that Layla was just talking about, because they are very real assault rifles that are pointed at you with their attack dogs, and all of the money. Obviously, the $21 million that was just spent on little old us here at Six Nations, camped out in a field.
And the actual level of criminalization, the level of expense that the state is willing to go to ensure that these movements, to ensure that our voices are silenced. I felt that when I came home after being arrested in Wet'suwet'en. There was we were at a rally and I saw police cherries in the rear view, and as soon as I saw them, I had this moment of paralysis. I didn't want to speak. I didn't want to. I just felt frozen. And I'm sitting there in the car, and it hit me in that moment that was the intent. That was why they didn't want me to come home and continue to speak up. They didn't want me to come home and continue to use my voice. They wanted to traumatize me into fear to resist. And the fact that Indigenous people keep standing up, even in this face of fear and trauma, the resistance is just a true sign of our strength, and it's what sets us apart. And that, like you said, there's when we say no, there's something that's significant there. So that when even though we're still going through criminal charges, there's still using the full extent of the law to criminalize us for standing on that bridge. The win comes from that act of resistance, that act of saying no, and that simple act can have these snowball effects, that we can say no, and our voices must be heard. They must be respected, and we will continue to say no as long as we have to.
And so this is obviously like a really complex issue, and it's a really fraught and really difficult. And Indigenous communities have been wrestling with these questions for a very long time. We're raised by aunties and uncles and people around us who thought that they had settled these kinds of fights. And being a young person, or being a person who's like now older and adult, who's engaged and expected to engage in these kinds of like discourse in our community, a lot of what I've heard from people that organized back then is saying, we thought we solved this problem. We did that work so that you kids wouldn't have to do this. And now I see my peers who are now parents who look at their kids and say, well, I hope we're doing this now. I hope 1492 happens and we don't have to expect our children to have this kind of fight in the future.